Short lecture, and really our lecture is going to lead into a little bit of analysis, which is what you are going to do in your notes this week, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to be honest with you all. These next like 6 chapters for me in The Catcher in the Rye are rough because Holden is just kind of losing it a little bit. He's becoming more and more desperate for connection with people. He's becoming more and more judgmental. He's running out of money. Like, the stakes are getting higher, and he just gets a bit much for me. And so I really think we need to talk about his judgments in this setting, like when he's being judgmental of other people, and his sense of like what's phony and what's not phony. That's his word. He loves to use it. Just because it's very easy in this section to get lost and annoyed with Holden. And I do get annoyed with Holden, and that's okay. But I think that, again, you can miss the whole point of this book in this section. So let's talk about this a little bit. So Holden's attitude and life choices so far have been like pretty much a huge dumpster fire. He does not have great communication. He does not rely on like safe people like parents or mentors to help him get through his life situations. He's kicked out of school. He's hanging out at bars, desperate to hang out with somebody, like asking a prostitute to hang out with him, asking a taxi driver to hang out with him. Like, these are not great life choices, even if he is lonely. But they are kind of about to get worse because we're going to see Holden actually start attempting to connect with people he has relationships with, and he's not going to do a very good job. So, like I said, we're entering a section of the novel where it gets very hard to separate his hypocrisy and bad life choices from his redeemable qualities. He does have them. Remember that. It's always found around kids. Promise. So, Holden's going to ramp up his judgment on both good and bad things. He's going to have a lot of opinions on everything. He's going to judge them. He's going to call them phony. And a lot of things are about to get really phony, according to him. What we need to keep in mind is that Holden's judgment is the thing that can lead us to his authentic feelings. And so we have 2 options when we read. We can listen to his judgment and just be like, that Holden guy, he's so judgmental and just so annoying. Or we can listen to that judgment, consider it for a second, and then see what that judgment really means. And these judgments are both positive and negative. I find that there are more negative judgments. Holden is usually being like negative judgy about things. But there are some positive judgments in this, and I don't want to completely obliterate those as well. So let's look at a couple examples of what I'm talking about. So here is an example of a negative judgment. On page 127, Holden talks pretty extensively about his aunt's and Sally Hayes' mother's charitable work. And he's, comparing this work to the work of the nuns who basically do charitable work full time. And he judges it or finds it phony because his aunt always does good work, like when she's well dressed. And he comments that there's no way she would do it if she had to dress up like a nun. Holden says that Sally's mother just does it for the attention, like the butt kissing. And after they serve, they go to expensive lunches and back to their normal lives. And he just can't reconcile his aunt and Sally's mother and their service with the service of these nuns. And so this reveals about Holden that he sees his aunt's and Sally's mom's service as something they do just to look good for society. They're not necessarily doing it because they want to make the world a better place. It's not something that's authentic or pure. The nuns, on the other hand, are living authentically in their service. And Holden wants people to give back because they have pure motivations, not just for the attention and not just for the nice lunch that you get after. And so this is something that if we just stopped with the judgment on his aunt, and on Sally, his mother's actions, we would just be annoyed at Holden. But when we stop and we think about what this actually reveals about Holden, it reveals something that he's not necessarily doing himself, but it is something that he's trying to value. He wants people to be authentic in their service and in what they're doing. There are also examples of positive judgment. So right after this episode about the aunt and Sally Hayes' mother's service, Holden sees a poor family coming out of a church, and there's this little kid just like playing in front of his parents, and he's singing "If a Body Catch a Body" coming through the rye. So he's the kid that kind of brings this into the story, and he's just being a kid. He's walking like a kid. His parents aren't really paying attention to him, and Holden just has this moment of positive judgment. He says that seeing the kid just being allowed to be a kid without the parents like really paying attention to him, it makes him feel better. He's not so depressed anymore. He has this moment of lightness. And this reveals that Holden values the child's youth and his carefree sense of self. He speaks of the child positively in the middle of talking about everything else in a really negative manner. So it starts to infer that he values the child over the adults. And we know he's struggling with this like growing up, sense of growing up. So it makes a lot of sense. So in your notes this week, I've got, a little bit of space right here for you to copy or paste your notes. And clearly you're not going to have very many because this is the last slide of this lecture. But what I do want you to do, What I do want you to do is I want you to find 4 other examples of something that Holden judges, whether positively or negatively. I think it's easier to find the things he calls phony or that he's saying he hates. And I want you to fill out the rest of this chart. It accidentally cut off one of them. There's 4 more. I want you to find 4 more in these 3 chapters. There are plenty more than 4. So this should find the ones that are the most obvious to you. Tell me what he's judging and what page you find it on. Tell me why he judges it, and tell me what this reveals about him. I put the first example on here just as a model so you have an idea of what I'm looking for. But really, I want you to spend some time in your reading considering what these things that are very annoying about Holden actually reveal about him. I have to remember that these annoying things reveal how broken Holden actually is and how much he needs connection and help and assistance. So keep it in mind. Let me know if you guys have any questions about this. If you're struggling with it, you can always come in and talk to me during my office hours, and I will look forward to seeing which judgments you choose this week.